The collateral damage of Harry's brutal move. Bear the brunt as the biggest wish backfires in a devastating court case for one truly depressing reason. If you use your imagination a little bit, then maybe you can even picture Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, leading a raiding party on a mid-sized Midland city, sitting on top of some noble horse and ready for a little bit of biff. And it's not like I think that maybe Meghan is harboring some kind of militarist fancy from her $20 million estate, but instead because I really do believe that you can easily connect the 12th century Queen Matilda to Meghan Markle. See, Matilda should have been, and actually, according to many historians, is the first Queen of England in her own right. And that's a fate that was ruined by her cousin. You see, she had a cousin, Stephen, and apparently he didn't appreciate the idea of a woman being in charge. If you do a little digging into royal history, you'll find out that it is women who have been paying a higher price. And this week, with Meghan's other half, Prince Harry, back in London to wage a war of his very own, it is women again who are paying the higher price. His chosen battlefield is, of course, the British High Court. So on one side, we've got Harry. He is trying to bring about a reckoning for the supposed sins of the British media in the 90s. And on the other, we've got the Mirror Group newspapers, who seem to have spared absolutely no cost in trying to fight off Harry's litigious advances. By the time Harry was exiting the witness box after having been treated to 6 hours of cross-examination by a barrister who looks pretty impressive and whose nickname is the Beast, reportedly, Harry was fighting back tears and he said, "It's a lot." But the person I feel the most sorry for in all this mess is somebody whose feelings are not being discussed right now by anybody. I am talking about Harry's ex-girlfriend, Chelsea Davy. For the past 12 years, Chelsea Davy has just been getting on with her life. And now Davy's name, through no choice of her own, has gone from ancient history to being splashed all over the media. Now, Davy may not have married her princely boyfriend back then, but her former association with Harry is still resulting in her bearing the cost. It has now been more than a decade since things ended between Davy and Harry, after 7 years spent together. Harry told the court that the main factor in why we decided to end our relationship was that Chelsea had no interest in being involved in public life. She found the press intrusion as difficult. And then a friend told the Telegraph she wanted to crack on with her own life and ambitions, and she realized that with Harry she wasn't going to be able to do this. And since that time, Chelsea Davy has obviously only wanted to fade from public view. She never wanted to be a public figure, even if that would have meant that she would have gone to host her own TV show or start her own skincare line. Instead, Chelsea Davy has started her own business. It's a jewelry brand called Aya. She married a hotelier called Sam Cutmore Scott, and they had a son last year and they named him Leo. According to the Telegraph, she wants to live under the radar so much that former friends don't even know exactly when she married her husband. She's 37 years old now, and she has not done much to court attention since then, other than a pre-pandemic interview she did with Tatler to promote her business. She said, "I'm very happy with where I am right now." That piece also claimed that Chelsea does concede that she's pleased with the direction her own path has taken in life, which has been a little more low-key, certainly freer than it might have been. So essentially, Chelsea Davy seems to have made a conscious choice back in 2011 that she wanted a different kind of life. She simply didn't want to spend her days opening hospital wards as a working royal, all while dressed in some very conservative pieces. But here she is again making news all over the world. This week, Harry told the court, "This isn't easy for me or my ex." Well, okay, I do wonder, did Harry even bother asking her what she wants? Maybe Harry's legal fight is something that Davy is behind, watching on from her homes in London and Cape Town and clapping every time Harry lands a blow, but I kind of doubt it. Maybe Harry did ask her before he dragged her name and their history back into the glare of the global spotlight. I do hope so, because I find it really depressing that maybe Davy again is being penalized for just having loved a member of the British royal family. She didn't do anything wrong. I'm sure this week wasn't easy for Meghan Markle either, and I'm sure it was painful for the family of the late TV host Caroline Flack, with whom Harry had a brief relationship. So if we zoom out from Davy and Flack and Meghan, if there is one thing that we can learn from the events of this week, it is that the women in the royal world are suffering a lot more than the men are. Because it is the women who have to bear the brunt of the consequences of the decisions of these royal men. And it's been that way for more than 1,000 years. Is it depressing? Well, yes, it is. Meghan is actually just the latest in a very long line of women who have suffered thanks to their royal connections. Now, it doesn't really matter what we think of Meghan at the end of the day. She has certainly faced personal distress since she decided that she wanted to be a duchess. Supposedly, she met Harry while she was on vacation in the UK. Supposedly, they fell in love. And she seemed perfectly happy to throw her lot in with the royal family. Until, of course, Meghan came to understand that signing on as an HRH required a lot more than learning to like swan and enjoying a nice tiara. If we go back through history, pretty much all we can find are royal women who were put through the ringer. Let's look at Catherine, for example. I mean, she had to put up with 9 years of being chased around by all these paparazzi, and she had to give up her dream of making a professional go of her photography because it wasn't appropriate for her as a royal girlfriend. And bless her heart, Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, had a topless photo of herself printed on the front page of a newspaper before her 1999 wedding to Prince Edward. And later on, she had to give up her hard-earned business, RJH Public Relations, a few years into her marriage. There is no place for anything that comes close to independent ambition when it comes to royalty. Now, any instinct to be a professional is overshadowed by demands of the ancient institution. And that's not all. In the 90s, it was Camilla who had to deal with the wrath of a nation who viewed her as this evil homewrecker, even though there were 2 people involved in some naughty phone conversations and occasional rendezvous. And then in the 80s, Diana and Sarah Ferguson had their weight, their clothing, their pregnancies, their smiles, as well as every word they uttered in public held up and judged. And was there ever a single story about what Charles was wearing? No. And what about when Prince Andrew got a little chubby when he indulged in 3rd and 4th slices of pie? Did anybody ever rush to publish a topless photo of Edward on the front page of a national newspaper? I don't think so. When it comes to the men of the royal family, there has always been a double standard. There has never been the same expectation that they were going to always be so sweet and smiley and ready to charm the kids, the elderly, and the royal press pack. Now, the British men have had every right throughout history to go and wage their own battles, whether it's against the Prussians or against the media of the UK. But all too often, it's the women in their lives who end up having to face the consequences. Throughout history, even in situations where they were completely innocent, it has been the royal women who have been divorced, beheaded, bullied, abandoned, cheated on. It is the women in the royal family who so often end up being the collateral damage, whose agency and freedom and happiness and autonomy are sacrificed. It's been a little over 880 years since Matilda was forced to go to war because of Stephen's whims. And honestly, folks, I can't help but wonder how much has really changed since then. I'm going to leave you with something a little more inspiring. Matilda refused to give in to Stephen, and that led to a brutal decade-place period called the Anarchy. And just like that, another thing that connects Matilda and Meghan. Royal women are typically made of some pretty strong stuff. And don't be afraid to click the subscribe button to get more updates in the future. Thank you so much for tuning in, have a lovely weekend, and we'll be back to see you all tomorrow.